When you think of a rock star, what pops into your head? Screaming fans, sold-out arenas, pure chaotic energy. Maybe you think of Elvis, the Beatles, Freddie Mercury, Taylor Swift. But what if I told you that the original rock star wasn't from the 20th century at all, or the 21st century? Long before electric guitars, there was a 19th century pianist who drove crowds into a frenzy so intense that doctors actually considered it a contagious medical condition, a phenomenon so wild that they had to coin a brand new word for it, Listomania. Welcome to At Home with Music. I'm Leon Olguin. This is the story of Franz Liszt, the first true rock star. So picture this. The year is 1844. We're in a packed concert hall in Paris, buzzing with the energy of hundreds of perfumed, perspiring people. On stage, a man with movie star looks and shoulder-length hair sits at a piano. He strikes the first notes and the room just detonates. This isn't polite clapping. It's mass hysteria. Women are literally fainting. People are scrambling, fighting, just to get a piece of him. This was the scene that followed Franz Liszt all across Europe. The man who documented it, the German poet Heinrich Heine, was the one who gave it a name, Listomania. He called it a veritable insanity, one unheard of in the annals of Führer. So how on earth did a classical pianist become the world's first pop idol? To get that, you have to understand the man who started the mania. Born in 1811 in the Austrian Empire, Franz Liszt was, to put it mildly, a prodigy. His father, a musician himself, saw his son's ridiculous talent early on. By 9, Liszt was already playing for nobility. By 11, he was a sensation in Vienna, studying with legends like Carl Czerny, who was a student of Beethoven. And that brings us to a story that perfectly captures the Liszt mystique. It's said that after one performance, when Liszt was still a teenager, the great Beethoven himself, by then almost completely deaf, walked on stage, embraced the young Liszt, and kissed him on the forehead. Well, historical records show that Beethoven likely never attended that specific concert, but the tale became a cornerstone of Liszt's identity, a symbolic passing of the torch, if you will. But a legend's journey is never that simple. When Liszt was just 16, his father died suddenly, sending him into a crippling depression. He quit music. He turned to religion and seriously thought about joining the priesthood. It seemed like the music world was about to lose one of its brightest stars. But he was in Paris during the 1830s, a city roaring with artistic and political revolution, and that's where Liszt found his fire again. The real light bulb moment came in 1832. Liszt went to a concert by the violinist Niccolò Paganini. Paganini was a spectacle, a virtuoso so skilled, so mesmerizing, that people whispered he must have cut a deal with the devil. Watching Paganini own that stage, something clicked for Liszt. He saw what was possible. He decided right then and there he would become the Paganini of the piano. So for a time he disappeared, dedicating himself to his craft with an obsessive, almost frightening focus. He wasn't just practicing, he was trying to reinvent the instrument. He wanted to make the piano do what Paganini did for the violin. Make it sing, make it scream, make it sound like an entire orchestra. This wasn't just about being a better player. It was about changing the very idea of what a piano concert could be. He was about to invent the live show as we know it. When Liszt came back to the concert circuit in the late 1830s, he wasn't just a pianist, he was a phenomenon. He'd crafted a whole persona, complete with long flowing hair and dramatic theatrical gestures, but his most crucial move was changing the stage itself. Before Liszt, pianists sat with their profile or even their back to the crowd. They would be conducting the orchestra with their back to the crowd and playing the piano. Liszt turned the piano sideways, giving the audience a perfect shot of his handsome face, and, more importantly, his hands flying across the keyboard. He didn't just want the spotlight, he was the spotlight, and the reaction was insane. This was the birth of Listomania. His fans didn't just cheer, they completely lost their minds. They would swarm him, clawing for any kind of souvenir. They fought over his used white gloves, which he deliberately left on the piano, his handkerchiefs, his cigar butts, which were sometimes snatched from the gutter and put inside lockets. If he broke a string from playing too hard, and that happened a lot, his admirers would dive to grab it and have it made into a bracelet. Women wore his portrait on brooches. They carried little glass vials to try and save the dregs from his coffee cup. This wasn't just admiration, it was a level of celebrity worship the world had never seen. His personal life was just as wild. He was a famous womanizer with a trail of scandalous, high-profile affairs, most notably with the married Countess Marie d'Agoult, with whom he had 3 children. He lived like a modern celebrity, always followed by an entourage, with the press documenting his every move. He was glamorous, controversial, and impossible to ignore. And behind the theatrics was a power that was very real. Liszt didn't just play the piano, he assaulted it. Stories followed him of pianos left with broken strings and splintered wood in his wake. He made the instrument roar with a sound so huge, people said it was like a full orchestra. He was loud, he was dramatic, he was revolutionary. It would be a huge mistake to write Liszt off as all style and no substance. That rock star persona was built on a foundation of pure musical genius, innovations that changed music history forever. First, he basically invented the solo piano recital. Before Liszt, concerts were like variety shows with a bunch of different performers. The idea that one person holding a stage for an entire night, well, that was seen as arrogant. But Liszt changed all that. He called his first solo shows musical soliloquies before landing on the word recital, a term that had previously only been for poetry. You'd have a poetry recital. But now Liszt had invented the piano recital. He was also the first to perform an entire program from memory, which was unheard of at the time, and put all the focus on the performer as the star. Before that, the composer was the star, and the composer would be greatly offended if you performed his works and didn't use the music. Liszt's own compositions were brutally difficult, pushing the absolute limits of what was humanly possible on a piano. Pieces like his Transcendental Etudes are still considered some of the toughest ever written, attempted only by the greatest pianists of our time. His Hungarian Rhapsodies took the folk music of his home and blasted it into the concert halls of Europe, injecting classical music with a fiery, passionate energy. You can even see cartoons where they play his Hungarian Rhapsodies. He didn't stop at the piano. Liszt was a visionary composer who invented a whole new musical form, the symphonic poem. These were single-movement orchestral pieces that used music to tell the story of a poem, a painting, or an idea, freeing composers from the rigid structures of the classical symphony. This directly paved the way for composers like Tchaikovsky, and even modern film composers, film score composers. And maybe this was very impressive to me. Late in his life, Liszt's music got weird in the best way possible. After all the fame, he took minor holy orders in the Catholic Church, but his music became more radical, not less. There's one piece that I remember called Nuages Gris, which I don't think I'm pronouncing correctly, but it's translated Gray Clouds. This piece explored harmonies and dissonances that were decades ahead of their time. It foreshadowed the impressionistic and atonal music of the 20th century. Liszt was also a fierce supporter of his peers, using his fame to promote the work of composers like Berlioz, Chopin, and his future son-in-law, Richard Wagner. So, was Franz Liszt the original rock star? The evidence is overwhelming, I think. He had the look, the charisma, the scandalous life, and the screaming fans who treated his cigar butts like holy relics. More than that, he had the spirit of a rock star. He was a revolutionary who completely tore up the rule book and changed the game forever. He turned the piano from a polite instrument into a stadium-sized beast. He invented the solo recital, creating the blueprint for modern concerts. If you've ever seen a solo piano recital, think about Franz Liszt. He invented that. He pioneered new musical forms that would shape the next century of sound. His legacy isn't just in the music he wrote. It's the very idea of an artist as a larger-than-life cultural icon. From the frenzy of Beatlemania to the massive online fandoms of today, you can draw a straight line back to a 19th century pianist and the wild, wonderful chaos known as Listomania. If you enjoyed this look into music history's wildest character, be sure to subscribe. Hit the notification bell, like this video, because I have more stories that I'd like to share with you that maybe you didn't learn in school. And let me know in the comments, who do you think is the Franz Liszt of our time? So thanks for watching. Thank you for subscribing, liking the video, and all that. And I look forward to speaking to you in the next one.